In this episode, I go back to Citywest to meet with the local community leaders to see what has really happened, what their hopes are, and if the new tone from the Irish government is credible, or is this just more government gaslighting? I'm Eddie Hobbs, let's break it down. Joining me here in studio is Linda DeCoursey, who's based in Clondalkin. She's a councillor with Independent Ireland. But first, let us watch the first counterpoint outing with my camera crew to talk to Citywest community leaders Kiran, Kassan and Anne Sullivan on site.
There was a case of indecent exposure by a resident in there. Drugs were found, a dirty needle was found. We're living with this on a daily basis.
I'm here at Citywest with Kiran Kassan. Hello Kiran, how are you? Community leader here. And Anne Sullivan, origins from Bear Island in West Cork, so one of our own. I just wanted to start with you, Kiran. Can you just describe Saggart as it was before all this stuff kicked off and what it's like today?
Well, what drew me to Saggart is it's a small community. It's kind of, I come from the country originally, come from Tipperary, so it's reminiscent of that. There's a lot of community, you're still not at people going down the street. It's a historic village.
What's the population number?
Just over 4,500.
Okay. And how many are in here then?
About half of that, about 2,400.
Okay.
Here. You know, the capacity I believe is supposed to be about 2,300. So in total about 2,400.
On the night that, RT arrived with their cameras, because they weren't here for any of the peaceful demonstrations, there was a lot of violence that night. But I'm presuming, but I'm asking you the question, that wasn't the main part of the community here.
No, up to that point, once we kind of heard that the hotel was due to be sold, and we were losing probably the central amenity of the village that kind of drew people here originally. So once we got wind of that, which would have been back around May of this year, we assembled outside and we tried to show that we were concerned and tried to get some interest from politicians. And we got basically zero traction. Nobody presented themselves. Our local TDs weren't heard of until the actual something kicked off here with regards to when there was an assault. There was meant to be a walk into the centre to, I suppose, just a protest. But then there was a barricade there with the guards, which is fine. Again, I had my kids down the night, so it was peaceful. But then things kicked off then.
Yeah, what I found unusual, there was a Garda van left completely isolated down the road, away from the action almost.
And some people can say that, right, it was baited or whatever.
But
that's
well, we call it the tethered goat for the moment. And then we had a visit here as well very recently by the commissioner in the EU Commissioner. Magnus Brunner, the Austrian ex-minister for finance.
He did. He came a couple of days ago, and the day before there was hoardings up there. There were steel hoardings that were there. They were basically removed. It was obviously an optics thing as well. He came in and said it was the best thing ever.
So 24 hours before he arrived, all of the armour was taken away.
Exactly, all of that was actually removed, and he arrived in, and I believe I saw the interviews afterwards said it was a shining example of what epicenters. But I don't know what he was looking at, because it definitely isn't that. I mean, people are stacked in there. There's issues with security. There's been incident reports where there's been 1,000 incidents, including heroin, drug taken on site, assaults of staff, assaults between the residents themselves, sexual exposure, like all of this kind of stuff.
But there's been internal riots and so...
Oh, even before, years ago, as I said, that's all up online. You know what I'm saying, is it actually that you can check up. But there was a riot inside, the guards were down there, and...
As you know, the rhetoric now has changed with the Minister for Justice now reacting to the British who are looking at the Danish model, and suddenly, there's no talk about changes. Do you have much confidence in that, or do you think it's...
I don't really. I think it was lip services, because we went to the Dáil, we tried to get some kind of traction from them, and there was nothing from them. So because I suppose they're saying that there is a bit of opposition from people outside and the views are changing of people, that they just see that that's what happened in England and what happened in other countries is starting to happen here, and then there's concern among people that have kids, people that are elderly. They just see their life changing.
Yeah, and there's an effect as well, I'd imagine, on local property prices too. Is there?
There has been, I believe. So according to estate agents, that there's an expectation that about 30% drops, and again, a lot of sales have actually fallen through. In the most recently.
What's the mood in Saggart now? And it looks like they're going to tighten up on numbers. Is there a sense of hope now, or is it more we just don't believe them because they've ignored us all the ways along and they only took an interest when there was violence?
That's it. We don't believe them. It's because they've lied to us all along. They've lied with regards to the engagements of the community. That hasn't happened. We've seen the community engagement team twice. And
Yeah, what did he describe the engagement? What was the nature of the engagement?
well, engagement in inverted commas. There is a central engagement team that is headed up.
The government team, yeah.
It's a government team that's kind of an intermediary between the community, supposedly, and the government. It's headed up by Evelyn Doyle. And even in her most recent speech back in 24, she stated that the communities are supposed to be the lead. They're supposed to be the centres of any decision making. But that is opposite has been our experience. That basically they came to the meeting and told us it's a done deal, and we're here to tell you what it is. And if you have any questions, we might.
In other words, you're just going to have to put up with it. That was the engagement.
More or less, yeah, more or less.
How are the mothers and daughters, feeling now about this?
Well, fear.
Yeah.
Life has certainly changed. Well, I mean, the residents here of the IPAS centre itself will be frequently drinking alcohol in the streets. Up in our plaza, it's congregating in large groups. So when you're collecting your children from school, there is a particular day we've noticed a trend with this, and it is the day that the social welfare is allocated from the local post office. You frequently see residents from the IPAS drinking, and you have to walk by with your children.
Yeah.
And it's really intimidating.
Yeah.
To do that. And then, of course, I mean, you're taking your children home from school. There's guys from the residents in the IPAS centre sitting on the steps of the school, drinking alcohol, smoking drugs. You have to phone the guards at 3 o'clock in the day.
Yeah.
And the guards came down and the guards moved them, but it's life has changed.
And the origin of a lot of the residents would be coming from Islamic states, wouldn't it?
That's what I see. I don't walk down the village anymore. I drive to the local primary school, which is 4-minute walk from this IPAS centre.
But I mean, husbands and partners, they're exercising an awful lot of restraint, aren't they? I can imagine they must be very concerned.
The fathers are equally as concerned.
Yeah.
I have a neighbour who has 3 daughters, 3 teenage daughters.
Yeah.
And he's terrified.
Yeah.
He has had to restrict them.
And what was the local reaction when the news came through of the alleged sexual assault of a 10-year-old Irish girl just behind me here over my shoulder?
Well, our worst fears came through because we had previously been peacefully protesting. A lot of parents came out to Citywest and peacefully protested. And the peaceful protests came about because we sent a number of emails to local TDs and councillors after the news had broken. I think it was the Irish Times that broke it, that they were proposing to purchase the hotel. So we got together as a group and we sent emails, made phone calls, and we got no responses whatsoever from anybody. So we decided then to take a very peaceful protest down outside of the hotel, begging the government really to engage with us and speak with us. Because when you live in an area and you see these people, and it's okay for me to say this because I've witnessed this with my own eyes, when you see how they leer at young girls, there are cultural differences.
Massive, yeah.
And when you see this type of behaviour, you know where it's going to lead to.
You just have to look at other countries in Europe.
Yeah, I mean, we have the blueprint for this. You look at other cities in Europe, you look at Sweden, you look at Italy.
But how do you respond then when you hear government spokespeople like, for example, Helen McEntee when she was Minister for Justice, saying, there is no link between this type of illegal immigration and crime?
As a group, as I said, the group of mothers, we really needed to get to the bottom of this, and we needed to get information. Information is key. When we put through FOI requests to the Department of Justice, the security logs from the IPAS centre itself, there were over 1,000 incidences between 2023 and very early 2025.
1,000?
1,000.
Yeah.
I think 50 of those 1,000 were reported to the guards.
Yeah.
A lot of assaults. There was a case of indecent exposure by a resident in there. Drugs were found, a dirty needle was found.
Yeah.
So we got this information back, but we can also see this is spilling onto our streets. And what's more concerning is, we've spoken to the guards, and the guards have been down to the centre and have made them aware that you can't do this. It continues. I don't believe the hope is there because we're living with this on a daily basis.
Okay.
As a woman, and many women, I know I speak for many women in this village, we're living in fear.
Okay.
We're supposed to have all these rights and liberties as women, but yet we're living in the dark ages. I mean, do we have to go back to being chaperoned by males? I mean, is that where we're going?
So,
And your fear and your safety, is at risk.
okay.
There is no hope.
Okay, well, we'll see how it develops, because I think there's going to be a lot of movement everywhere in Europe as well as in Ireland. I just want to thank you for coming on Counterpoint. I've always wanted to get down and meet the community. I wanted to be able to tell the audience that these are us, we are them. These, you know what I mean? Like, there's nothing unusual about people here in this local community. They're just normal Irish people, and all of the tropes that you've been subject to, racist, far right, and all the rest of it, just doesn't stack up to the reality.
No, it doesn't, because, I mean, my 8-year-old child doesn't have one Irish friend. I mean, there's rich diversity in this village. There always was.
Yeah.
But this is different.
This is different. That's the point, isn't it? Yeah.
This is completely different.
Okay, and thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Okay, guys, thanks very much. Now, Linda, there's a lot in that, isn't there? I mean, anything jump out at you there?
There is, and I suppose it's the frustration that people feel and have been feeling since we found out that the government was, well, we kind of knew the end of last year. There were murmurings and we were trying to find out. And I know Deputy Michael Collins of Party Leader of Independent Ireland had kind of tried to get answers from the Minister for Justice. PQs were not answered. So we knew there was something going on and everybody kind of felt it was coming. But, when you're not getting answers, then you just don't know. So it was only when it was sort of announced that they had this epiphany, oh yeah, this is a really good idea. We'll buy Citywest Hotel. So then, then they started protesting as Anne was saying, yeah.
And one of the things there I found remarkable as well was it reminded me of Potemkin. I don't know if you recall, it was in 1787. He was bringing Catherine the Great down to see Crimea.
Okay.
And he had down in the flotilla with all of the ambassadors from around Europe, and he had set up false villages all the ways along, and with his army dressed as peasants, cheerily digging the ground. And she thought it was very funny because she saw through it straight away.
Right, okay.
But of course, the ambassadors in Europe didn't.
No, yeah.
And here we are with the same thing.
We have ambassadors coming over, and it's funny because the hoarding, the metal hoarding that had been put up. So there were only 2 nights when there was any sort of incidents with protesting. So the night of the alleged incident, which was the Monday night, they were protesting, and everything was perfectly peaceful. The Tuesday and the Wednesday, obviously, there was the violence and that. But after that, everything was perfectly peaceful. But the hoarding, which had been up, and I'd been on to the community engagement team as they were talking about in the video. So ideally, the community engagement team want to liaise with councillors rather than go to the community directly. They don't want to be dealing with everybody. And I can understand that to a certain extent, but I think in a situation as serious as this, you need to have people from the Department of Justice talking to people on the ground. So at least they are meeting with them slightly. But anyway, the hoarding was all removed and we were like, yay, this is great, because it looked like a war zone. I mean, Saggart is a lovely sleepy village. Yeah, well, it's not so much a sleepy village anymore. It's got very big, but I mean, it's still lovely, quiet village and a nice kind of little, village centre and where people, just walk around and go about their business. But so we were delighted when we heard the hoarding was coming down. But then, of course, the next day we hear, Jim O'Callaghan is taking, someone from Brussels in and just to show them how fabulous it is.
It's time to pivot to solutions. We know the problems and the challenges. This coming January the 10th and 11th, I'm hosting the first ever IRL Forum, a solutions-driven national public conference with special guests speaking on issues Ireland faces today. Hence, this is the beginning of a comprehensive new discussion about what to do. Visit irlforum.com now for limited tickets with 20% off for early birds using my promo code EDDIE. See you there. Yes, Magnus Brunner.
Brunner, yes.
Brunner, yes. And
he said it was best practice. Yeah.
Yeah, and he was broadcasting then within a few hours of his visit.
Yes.
Eulogising.
Yeah, I know. How fabulous it is.
Citywest.
It's an amazing idea. Let's do it everywhere.
It's extraordinary, like that. He drove straight past the site where the 10-year-old child was allegedly sexually assaulted.
Yeah.
And there was an attempt even there to take the emphasis away from Citywest. It was this happened in Saggart. Yes. Except for one newspaper who broke it as no Citywest.
Yes, it was Citywest. Yeah.
So, I mean, it must be deeply frustrating for people in the locality to know that they're subject to state propaganda, and they have been for quite some time.
Yeah.
It's only now changing.
Yeah.
How do you see that change unfolding? You're listening to it and watching it, and I know you're very informed about it.
Yeah, it's interesting because I mean, it's the same. It's been the same for any community that has had this happen to them. The difference with Citywest is that it's literally the purchase of the hotel. Most other communities, they are supposed to be temporary. So a hotel is taken over or whatever, but that's supposed to be temporary. This just makes it permanent, and I think that's the more depressing thing about it, that it's long term. Like, I mean, where I live, we have the Moran Red Cow, we've the Ibis Red Cow. You've got the Dalkin House, which is the psych building. They're all IPAS centres, but they're supposed to be temporary. So as bad as it is, at least you feel like there will come a day when they will revert back to being, whatever their original purpose was, hotels, etc. But this is now this is no longer a hotel, it's an IPA centre. So I think it's the permanency of it, and that was the thing that was really upsetting people. Because, when the Ukraine war started and Ukrainians came in and they were housed in Citywest, because it's a massive hotel, 700 and something, 40 something rooms, and the people of the village, they literally bent over backwards and helped the mums and the children out any way they could, and happy to do so, as did communities all over the country. And because we are a generous, giving people, and the vast majority of people will want to help when they can, when they see a need. But then suddenly you go from mums and babies and mums and young kids to these men coming from mainly, as you mentioned in your video, Muslim countries. So it's the change in demographic, and then it's the change in the narrative that, you start calling people a name just because you don't like the fact that they are concerned. When there are men walking up and past, the primary school is literally, it's 100 meters up the road. And then it's not closed off, during the day. So you can technically walk up to the front of the school, so anybody could be doing that, so it is concerning for families.
Yes, since the outcome of the presidential election spoiled the vote, which was 13% of the ballot. And then, of course, the British following beginning to talk about following the Danish model, because the Labour government are so fearful of Farage and reform. And now we're seeing it spilling into the Irish narrative.
Yeah.
How do you rate the Minister for Justice? Do you think he's authentic in his posturing? That Ireland is effectively, we can't keep going like this. We've got to change. No, whatever about what Simon Harris I'm talking about the Minister for Justice, because he's the man that's carrying the briefcase on this. Do you see much hope here, or do you think that it's just buying time?
I think it's just buying time. Obviously, compared to the last Minister for Justice, he is actually doing his job. I think most people would acknowledge, but it's a pretty low bar to be starting from. Yeah. I think making big songs and dances.
That's Helen McEntee you're referring to, of course.
But making a big song and dance about sending whatever 30 Georgians or whatever home, and then the same week another 30 or 35 arrive. It's, we're spending loads of money sending people home on a plane, but the same number are coming back, So we have to disincentivize people coming into the country. We have to make it much less attractive. At the moment, it's proper, Kate Neal-Fulcha on steroids, as I've said before. It's too attractive. So I think maybe he's constrained. Maybe he feels constrained, but he sounds like he really does want to make some changes. So, you do have to give credit where it's due. I think he is trying to make the rules stricter and speed up the processing time, which for the people who come here, regardless of whether you're an economic migrant or a genuine asylum seeker, you don't want to be sitting in limbo for 8-10 years. So speeding that up is good for everybody. It's good for them. And if they do have to go home, at least they're not hanging around for 6 years or 8 years or 10 years. And then, it's better to be repatriated in a timely manner than be kind of left in limbo for a long time. So he's making small changes, and any positive move is obviously to be, okay, well done. But I mean, it's not enough. It's a drop in the ocean. We need to really, really curb this. We need to be prioritizing on, all these different communities, the people who live in Saggart. What do they need? What do they deserve? Tax paying, hardworking men and women and families. They need to be prioritized, as far as I'm concerned, not people who are coming from from all over the world.
Do you know what I find absolutely jaw-dropping and extraordinary is that. You keep talking about it, but in June 2024, as you were getting elected for the first time, and congratulations on that.
Thanks
obviously, we'll talk a little bit about that later on. But in June 2024, Ireland voluntarily joined the EU Migration Pact, right? Now that should have been put as a vote to the people, as you know, and listened to. It wasn't, right? And it was absolutely jaw-dropping moment, because the only country that also had the opt-out, Denmark is now the model that the Brits want to follow, and that the Irish then want to follow the Brits, so that we don't get an overflow coming into this country as a consequence of, you know, an arbitrage between the Irish rules and the British rules. And here we are, like 2 years later, circling back to, well, the Danes have got it right, and we've got it hopelessly wrong.
Yeah. No, and to me, it's like abdicating responsibility. Like the Irish government, and I know we're in the EU and some things are kind of, you know, controlled by the EU, but I think you can still push back if you don't like the way something is being done. You know, like when you look at everything the government seems to be doing, it's just bowing and kind of bowing the knee to everything that they say. So I think signing up to that was like a further abdication of any responsibility. Like, you know, if you're in government, take ownership of the government. We're not a very big country. It's not a massive. We should be able to, as the government should be able to be responsible for what they're supposed to be doing, and be like, no, we need to control our borders. That's the first measure of a nation. Does it have borders? Is it a sovereign state? And yes, we need to be looking after our borders. Well,
which we didn't. And because I know from we were only meeting for the first time, by the way, for those watching, and we had a short chat before you came in. But what is remarkable, just as we speak, the United States of America State Department, that's Marco Rubio's department, they've just unleashed this new Undersecretary for State, Sarah Rogers, on the scene, and she's a weapon. This woman really knows her stuff, and she's only the tip of the spear, because it's quite clear that the US, this new US document, which is just released in November 2025, called the National Security Strategy. So it's a short read; it's 30 pages long. Everybody should read it. It outlines in clear English what the American strategy is, and when it comes to Europe, they want to make Europe great again. Yeah. And they're basically but they're basically saying that this isn't in their interest at all. They're basically calling out European governments, a lot of them, as being led by weak people, allowing the destruction of Europe. And they're saying this is unacceptable. And they're getting behind people and political parties that are prepared to do something about that. I find that absolutely extraordinary. Of course, I no longer find it extraordinary that it's never reported properly in the Irish mainstream media. But what do you make of it?
I think it's very sad that we've come to such a stage that we are literally like, I mean, there's a kind of a history program. We were talking a bit about history before you came on. It's called Fall of Civilizations, and I've enjoyed watching it. Just podcasts about different, you know, Roman Britain and stuff like that, and you know, Europe and the Phoenicians, and it's interesting because I'd rather watch, you know, a video about history than read a history book. But anyway, like he always says at the end, imagine what it would be like to see your civilization falling apart. And sometimes I think we are actually, if you're aware of what's going on, you're seeing where, you know, like now the Christmas markets in Germany, very, very long-standing tradition celebrating the birth of Jesus Christ. You know, we're a Christian continent, and now they've been cancelled or they have to put the bollards up because there's a certain faction of society that has come into Europe that doesn't want anything to do with Christ and hates anything to do with Christians.
This is the Islamization of Europe.
So it's like, so you can see that is actually happening, and it is actually happening. I mean, this is really only since 2015 that this became a massive issue. So like 10 years, and things have changed so much. And you know, like we had such freedoms, and you know, like, I mean, I was born in the 70s, left school in 89. So you know, we had so many freedoms when we were young, and we'd no idea what they were. You know, we didn't appreciate them, I suppose, because we were just in that kind of time frame where, like, I remember in school, like we were basically told, you know, whatever you want to do, you can do. Like there's nothing holding you back. Obviously, an all girls school, but you know, but now, you know, like you know, there's parts of Europe where you see, you know, women are not allowed. You know, they're kind of, you know, given out to if they're walking down like in a pair of shorts the road or the street in a pair of shorts, and it's very, very concerning what's happening. So yeah, no, I do, and I'm glad it's coming from the US. It's a pity that it has to happen, but like sometimes people need a good kick up the backside when they're going the wrong way. Like if you have a teenager acting the maggot, they just need to be told. And I think we do have a situation where the governments are weak. They're pandering to every woke ideology, to every, you know, like every touchy-feely daily thing. Like, and I've always said we can't, especially we're a small country, we can't fix the world. We have to stop pretending we can fix the world. We have to make this country as good a country as it can be, and then do what we've always done, which is go out and, whether it was as missionaries or, like Cllr, when it used to be a charity that actually helped people, that we've always given, we gave more in Live Aid per capita than anybody else in the world, so we've always been extremely generous. We've always been extremely compassionate and caring. And I think that's been taken advantage of. So I feel, need to make sure this country is functioning well, make sure Europe is functioning well, and then we can help. We can be like, okay, how can we help you, whatever, Nigeria or whatever country, how can we help you? How can we support you to be a better, thriving democracy like we are, rather than collapsing our own democracies just to, I don't know, keep whoever happy.
Can I ask you then, do you think we're beginning to crawl out of the being controlled by the hurty words, not like you paused there when I said you mean the Islamization of Europe. Because because I'm doing this, I've had to take a crash course in all of this, try and find out what's going on. And I recommend everybody do it, because what I've learned, very, very, very routine study, is completely different from what I thought the situation was. I mean, Islamization really is really a political movement that is also a religious movement. But the actual motive behind it is taking over. I mean, that's as part of the religious impulse. And that's what makes it completely different to Christianity and any other religion you care to talk about. And but my question isn't it about time that we were able to use these words properly and talk about security rather than racism, talk about culture and heritage, and holding on to what is Irish instead of being afraid of saying one of these hurty words. Yeah,
no, because I really feel, and again, as a party, we are also very concerned about our culture and our history. We have an amazing long history, goes back, thousands of years. Nobody knows, so much about where did Ulster, Munster, Leinster come from, Connacht as well. Nobody, so there's so much of our history that is known all over the world and loved all over the world. And so I feel, and again, as a party, we are concerned about that. We don't want to lose that. We need to preserve that. And I think it's important as well that when we're, that it's not, attacking any person, and it's the difference between the political ideology that is Islam and then the religion. And I mean, I again, as a woman, I would have a lot of concerns about how they treat women, an honor killing is, it's horrendous what happens, in certain Islamic countries, and we don't want to see that coming in here. And unfortunately, it's creeping in, and it's creeping into Europe. They now have honor killings in Europe, and it's not from Western cultured, culture-minded people. So, but I think preserving our culture, preserving our heritage is absolutely fundamental, because if we lose it and then it's gone, and it's are we going to be the generation that let it go? And I think that would be a terrible indictment for those of us who live in such a time of affluence as well.
Well, we talk about history because one of your forebears there, was on a quick note to myself, was John DeCoursey, very flamboyant Norman.
Yes.
And came in here in 1131 or so.
1170 something.
1170,
yeah.
But I mean, he built Carrickfergus Castle.
He did, yeah.
So that's your old haunt.
It is, yeah. I was up there. Yeah, I've been up there. There's another ruin. It's Dundrum, which is in County Down. Yeah. So there's another. He built loads of castles. That's the most. That's the one that survives the most. Has survived the best. But yeah. So you
don't intend taking charge of any one of those.
They'd be very happy if I went up to Carrickfergus and take it over.
You got elected in June 2024 in the local council.
Yeah.
So which is, why did you do that? What was the spark?
I'm fed up. So the immigration thing has been an issue, and obviously depending where you live, it's all location. But where I live, we've seen the change. I live in Clondalkin over the past probably 7-8 years now, very significant change, and especially not just the IPAS centres, but you just see it all over the village, and you literally could be standing in the village, and people who walk past you, 8 or 9 of them out of 10 are not Irish, clearly not Irish. So it's the volume of people coming in. It's not people coming in. I've had African friends I've known since the 90s. They've been living here. They're medical. They work really hard. They contribute to society. But I mean, it's the volume of people coming in, and it's the sudden influx. So I think it was that, and then obviously also the IPAS centres. But then what was happening was they wanted to pedestrianise Clondalkin village. So Clondalkin has a round tower, so
You're very strong on, I noticed, on environment and infrastructure as well.
Yeah, well, I mean, I like the environment is really important, but also people need to be able to get around, and where I live is particularly the area that I'm in, which is kind of central Clondalkin. There's there's an older demographic, and so they need their cars, and they're going to drive in their car. So if you cut off the direct route, they're just going to go the longer way around. So you end up spending more time in the traffic, in the car, burning petrol, burning diesel, and being more stressed. And stress is really bad for your health. Stress is deadly. So I feel like we need to just keep the traffic
open. That's a nutritionist in you coming out.
Absolutely, because it is like, there's nothing like sitting in the car, for 10 times longer or 4 times longer than you need to sit there is not good. So so that was another reason. So we managed to get that stopped. We got petitions going, and so I ran and I knocked on doors and said, look, I've never done this before. I'm in my 50s. I'm fed up with the way the country is going. Give me a chance, and thankfully people did. But the immigration thing was a big thing as well. So they were the 2 reasons that I actually
well done.
ran.
And you've also been I was just checking to see what. And the cost of living is something, obviously in Clondalkin in particular, most of Ireland, it's a huge issue.
It is. It's just, again, it's like I suppose the people in my kind of immediate locality, they would be, again, a lot of them are retired. And I suppose the particular demographic in Clondalkin, a lot would have been who would have left school after their intercert. They would have been working since they were 14 or 15. So they're 70, 80 now. They've been literally working, all their lives. And so they're €5 over a fuel allowance and, this sort of thing, small things. And then they're seeing, again, because with all the IPAS centres, they're seeing these hundreds of young men walking around in their fancy clothes, and they've got their bus pass and they've got their medical card. And there's a guttural anger there, and it's a justified anger. It's like, this is not fair. I mean, our parents, our grandparents, our great-grandparents, they all contributed to building this society in the hope that they would leave it better for us. And so what's happening now is the reverse is kind of happening. It's whereas, and it's not just even the older people, obviously it's the young people who can't, get out of their parents' house. They're living upstairs. The number of, parents that I would speak to or houses I'd call to and, I'd talk about the housing crisis and they'd be like, oh yeah, someone's up the stairs behind me, like living at home because he can't, or else the heartbreak of families who've kids have had to move to Australia, and that's,
But can I just pick you up on that, because you use the term there, guttural anger, and like when you take that, I think that's, by the way, I think that's absolutely very real, and it's not just in the area you're in; it's everywhere. But when you pick that up, and you look at the snail pace change that's going on, and this is incompatible. I mean, if these things don't change at a faster pace, we're going to be dealing with a far bigger problem than just guttural anger. Yeah. Is that overstating the case?
I don't know. I don't think so. I think, unfortunately, I don't know. It's hard to tell how things are going to go because, you don't know what's going to happen. You don't know, kind of like, as I said, after the spoil the vote. So 20% of people in Dublin Midwest spoil their vote. So that was every 1 in 5 in the Citywest, my constituency. So that was a very, very high percentage. So but I mean, when something like that happens, that's a peaceful protest of the best kind, and then suddenly Simon Harris and Micheál Martin are like, "Oh yeah, no, we have a problem with immigration." So I can't say, I can't see the future.
Well, you see, I think the question I was really getting to was that, I mean, when you look across Europe, you can see like this is unsustainable. I mean, people aren't going to put up with it. As simple as that.
No, I agree, and I think. For the fighting Irish, we're quite passive in a lot of ways, and also people are very busy and they're very stressed, and we don't like to make a fuss. That's a big thing about being Irish, is like we just don't want to make a fuss, So, and I think that's why we've been manipulated in so many ways to kind of, if someone calls you a nasty name, you kind of be like, okay, well, I just won't say anything because I don't want to make a fuss. I don't want to upset. I don't want my mum thinking, my mammy thinking that I upset the neighbours by saying something. I think that's a big thing in our psyche.
Yeah, let somebody else upset the neighbours.
Exactly. Yeah.
Not one of our own.
Exactly. Yeah.
Even though I agree with what you're saying.
Yeah, exactly.
I can tick that box. I can tell you. So listen, I wish you well. I think it's going to be very interesting when the next general election cycle comes around.
Yes.
To watch you.
Yeah.
And see what happens there. So for those that are interested in starting a career in politics, Linda, I think you're the only female in the Irish Independent front bench, are you?
And the only
Or
female,
Independent Ireland.
only female that got elected, obviously.
got elected,
So lots ran. But I mean, I think at the end of the day, and obviously there is the whole thing, whether I'm not into the gender quotas. I think they're very insulting.
Yeah.
But I think like at the end of the day, people will vote for people who they feel will do the job for them. Like there will obviously always be a few women who'll say to me, "I'm really glad you're a woman and you're running," and that's great. But I think at the end of the day, people are like, okay, who do I trust most to do the job? So,
but when you get together with your fellow elected representatives from Independent Ireland, and you begin to talk, do they listen to you closely, more closely?
No, of course. In all fairness, like I mean, it's we're from all over the country. We're from all different backgrounds as well, which is nice because there's a lot of people who would have been different parties, like Noel Thomas, who's running in Galway West. He was Fianna Fáil, So there's some ex Sinn Féiners and ex Fine Gaelers, and so there's people from.
But you're able to handle them anyway.
Oh, absolutely. No. It's all they're all.
You're able to herd them well.
I am. I'm like, okay, guys, hang on, gentlemen.
Okay, well, listen, Linda, thank you so much for coming into the studio. Let's see how all this plays out in the times ahead. So there you have it. You know what to do. Hit the like and subscribe button. If you like this kind of content, do send it around, and let's see how things develop over the next number of months. Because the pace of change is certainly increasing, especially with the big pivot going on in American foreign policy towards Europe. Thank you. Thank you, Linda.
Thank you.